June 6, 1944, 0630 hours, Omaha Beach, Normandy. Sergeant John Robert Slaughter of the 29th Infantry Division's 116th Regiment waded through chest-deep water toward the beach. Machine gun fire ripped through the waves around him. Artillery shells exploded in the surf. Men were dying by the dozens in the water and on the sand. Slaughter was 34 years old, overweight by military standards at 230 pounds on a 5'9" frame. When he'd enlisted in 1942, the recruiting sergeant had looked at his physical examination results and frowned. "You're 40 pounds over the weight limit for your height," the sergeant said. "We can't take you." Slaughter had argued. He'd served in the Virginia National Guard before the war. He had military experience. He was strong. He could march carrying full equipment. The weight wasn't fat, it was muscle from years of farm work. The recruiting sergeant remained skeptical, but eventually processed his enlistment with a waiver, noting his excessive weight and recommending assignment to non-combat duties. When Slaughter reported to the 29th Division, the mockery began immediately. Other soldiers, young men mostly in their early 20s weighing 150 to 170 pounds, called him tubby, fatty, and worse. Officers questioned whether he could keep up on forced marches. His company commander suggested he'd be better suited for supply duties or administration, where physical fitness mattered less. During training in England preparing for D-Day, Slaughter's weight became a constant issue. He failed the first physical fitness test. He struggled with obstacle courses designed for lighter men. He finished last in timed runs. Medical officers recommended he be reassigned to rear echelon duties. His battalion commander agreed. Slaughter was too fat for frontline combat. He'd slow down his unit. He'd become a casualty quickly. Better to use him where his weight wouldn't be a liability. But Slaughter refused reassignment. He'd enlisted to fight, not to push papers. He worked harder than anyone in his company. He trained longer. He carried heavier loads to prove he could handle combat equipment. He improved his fitness test scores gradually. He demonstrated he could keep up on marches despite his weight. Eventually, reluctantly, his commanders allowed him to remain with a frontline infantry company, though they remained skeptical about his combat effectiveness. Now, on D-Day morning, wading through the killing zone of Omaha Beach, Slaughter was about to demonstrate that weight had nothing to do with combat effectiveness, that the officers who'd called him too fat had confused physical appearance with capability, that being overweight didn't mean being unable, and that over the next 18 hours, from 0630 hours, on June 6th through midnight, John Slaughter would kill 76 German soldiers, more than any other American soldier killed on D-Day, proving that combat effectiveness came from determination, skill, and courage, not from fitting on a height-weight chart. The Virginia farm boy. Strength under criticism. To understand how Slaughter became one of D-Day's deadliest soldiers requires understanding his background and why his weight, seen as a liability by military authorities, was actually irrelevant to his combat capabilities. John Robert Slaughter was born March 15, 1910, in Roanoke, Virginia. He grew up on a family farm where physical labor was constant and necessary. From age 10, Slaughter worked farm chores that built extraordinary physical strength, hauling hay bales, lifting feed sacks, plowing fields, moving equipment, repairing fences. The work was hard, continuous, and built muscle mass that wouldn't disappear just because military charts said he weighed too much. By his late teens, Slaughter could lift weights that left thinner men exhausted. He could work all day in fields without tiring. His endurance, built through years of farm labor, exceeded what most men could achieve. The weight issue emerged when Slaughter enlisted in the Virginia National Guard in 1936 at age 26. His weight was already 210 pounds. Military height-weight standards said he should weigh no more than 175 pounds for his 5'9" height. Medical officers noted his excessive weight, but allowed him to serve in the National Guard because the Guard needed men and Slaughter was otherwise healthy. Slaughter served 5 years in the Guard, mostly weekend drills and summer training. He performed well. His fitness scores were acceptable despite his weight. His marksmanship was excellent. He was promoted to corporal based on performance. When he left the Guard in 1941, his service record noted that despite being overweight by regulations, he'd been a capable soldier. When America entered World War II after Pearl Harbor, Slaughter decided to re-enlist. He was 31 years old. He weighed 230 pounds. He knew he was overweight by military standards, but believed his strength and experience made him valuable. The recruiting sergeant's initial rejection frustrated him. Slaughter knew he was physically capable despite his weight. He'd proven it in the National Guard. He'd proven it through years of farm work. But military regulations were inflexible. The waiver that finally allowed his enlistment came with the recommendation for non-combat assignment. This reflected military belief that overweight soldiers couldn't handle combat's physical demands. The assumption was that heavy soldiers would tire quickly, struggle with equipment loads, and become liabilities in sustained operations. Slaughter knew this assumption was wrong based on his experience, but he couldn't convince authorities without proving himself in actual combat. Training in the United States during 1942 and 43 showed the persistence of weight-based prejudice. Physical training instructors made Slaughter run extra miles to lose weight. They put him on restricted diets. They exempted him from certain training exercises they assumed he couldn't complete. The constant message was that his weight made him deficient, regardless of his actual performance. But Slaughter performed adequately in most training. He could march carrying full equipment. He could complete obstacle courses, if slowly. He qualified expert with the M1 Garand rifle. His tactical knowledge, based on his National Guard experience, was solid. The only area where he consistently struggled was timed runs and exercises requiring speed. But combat, Slaughter understood, was rarely about running fast. It was about endurance, strength, and determination. These qualities he possessed abundantly. When the 29th Division deployed to England in October 1943 to prepare for the invasion of France, Slaughter's weight remained an issue. British rations, combined with limited opportunity for physical training during winter, caused him to gain additional weight. By March 1944, he weighed 240 pounds. Medical officers again recommended his reassignment to non-combat duties. His commander again agreed that Slaughter was too fat for combat. Slaughter fought the recommendation. He argued that his experience made him valuable. He demonstrated his ability to handle equipment loads. He improved his fitness scores through extra training. He volunteered for every difficult assignment to prove his capability. Eventually, more from exhaustion with his persistence than from actual confidence in his abilities, his commanders allowed him to remain with Company D, 116th Infantry Regiment. He would participate in the D-Day invasion despite being, in his commander's words, the fattest soldier in the battalion. June 6, 0630. The beach. The invasion plan called for Company D to land in the first wave at 0630 hours on a sector of Omaha Beach designated Dog Green. Intelligence had suggested German defenses in this sector were moderate. The reality was catastrophic. German forces had fortified Dog Green with machine gun nests, artillery positions, and obstacles. They had clear fields of fire covering the entire beach. They were waiting for the invasion. As landing craft approached the beach, German artillery began falling among them. Several craft were hit and sank before reaching shore. Survivors struggled in the water weighed down by equipment. Slaughter's craft managed to reach the beach obstacles. The front ramp dropped. German machine gun fire immediately swept the ramp. The first men out were cut down instantly. Slaughter was positioned midway back in the landing craft. He watched men ahead of him die as they tried to exit. The water ahead was filled with bodies and struggling soldiers. The beach beyond was swept by constant machine gun fire. Every instinct said to stay in the landing craft's relative protection. But staying meant dying when German artillery inevitably hit the stationary target. Slaughter jumped off the side of the landing craft into shoulder-deep water. His equipment, over 70 pounds, including rifle, ammunition, grenades, and supplies, pulled him under. His weight, the supposed liability, actually helped. His strength allowed him to push off the bottom and surface. Lighter men, equally weighted by equipment, struggled more to stay afloat. Slaughter waded toward shore. German machine gun fire churned the water around him. Bullets struck his pack. One grazed his helmet. Artillery shells exploded in the surf, creating geysers of water. Men were dying all around him. Some were hit and sank. Some struggled with equipment in the water. Some made it to the beach only to be killed on the sand. The chaos was complete. The carefully planned invasion was disintegrating into massacre. Slaughter reached the beach. He crawled behind beach obstacles that provided minimal cover from machine gun fire, but no protection from artillery. He assessed the situation. Company D had been devastated. Of the 197 men who'd landed in the first wave, over 100 were already dead or wounded. The survivors were pinned down, unable to advance or retreat. German fire from elevated positions dominated the beach. Without movement forward to eliminate German positions, everyone on the beach would eventually die. Slaughter identified the nearest German machine gun position, a concrete bunker approximately 200 yards up the beach and 50 yards inland. The bunker's machine gun was firing parallel to the beach, sweeping any movement. The position had to be eliminated, but reaching it required crossing 200 yards of open beach under constant fire. Every soldier who'd tried had died. Slaughter decided to try anyway. He'd been told he was too fat for combat. He'd been told his weight made him a liability. Now he was going to prove that weight was irrelevant. He started crawling, using every shell crater, every obstacle, every slight depression in the sand, moving when German attention was elsewhere, freezing when machine guns swung toward him. The slow advance took 30 minutes to cover 200 yards. He reached a position behind a disabled tank approximately 30 yards from the bunker. From here, he could see the bunker's firing slit. The machine gun barrel was visible, sweeping back and forth. Slaughter prepared a grenade. He estimated the distance, calculated the throw angle, waited for the machine gun to point away from him, then threw. The grenade arced through the air and landed perfectly inside the bunker's firing slit. The explosion inside the concrete structure was devastating. The machine gun fell silent. German soldiers inside were dead or wounded. Slaughter immediately moved to the next nearest German position, 0730 through noon, the systematic elimination. With the first German position eliminated, Slaughter continued working his way up the beach, systematically destroying German strongpoints. His method was simple but effective. Identify German position, advance using any available cover, get close enough for accurate grenade throws or rifle fire, eliminate the position, move to the next position. At 0800, Slaughter threw grenades into a German trench position, killing 4 German soldiers manning a machine gun. At 0830, he used his M1 Garand rifle to kill 3 German soldiers trying to reposition an artillery piece. At 0900, he eliminated another bunker position with 2 grenades, killing 5 Germans. By 9:30, other American soldiers were following Slaughter's example. Seeing that movement toward German positions was possible, others began advancing. Small groups of soldiers coordinated attacks on German strongpoints. Slaughter was consistently at the front of these impromptu assaults. His weight, far from being a liability, gave him momentum when pushing through obstacles. His strength allowed him to carry extra grenades and ammunition that lighter soldiers couldn't manage. Between 9:30 and noon, Slaughter participated in the elimination of 6 more German positions. His personal tally of confirmed kills grew steadily. 2 Germans killed with rifle fire at 100 yards. 3 more killed with grenades in a fighting position. 4 Germans killed when he threw grenades into a bunker. 5 Germans killed when he led a squad assault on a trench system. The other soldiers stopped calling him Tubby or Fatty. They started calling him Sergeant Slaughter, with respect in their voices. His company commander, who'd called him too fat for combat, watched Slaughter eliminate German position after German position with methodical efficiency. After watching Slaughter kill 8 Germans in a single bunker assault, the commander radioed battalion that Sergeant Slaughter was the most effective soldier on the beach. By noon, the American forces had pushed German defenders back from the beach. The immediate crisis was over. Landing reinforcements and supplies could proceed. The invasion, nearly catastrophic at dawn, was succeeding partly because soldiers like Slaughter had refused to stay pinned down and had fought their way forward despite terrible casualties. Slaughter's confirmed kills by noon totaled 38. He'd used approximately 120 rounds from his M1 Garand, achieving roughly 30% hit rate under combat conditions. He'd thrown approximately 20 grenades, with 18 hitting their targets. His movement across 200 yards of beach, then up the bluffs to German positions, all while carrying full equipment and additional ammunition and grenades, demonstrated that his weight had been irrelevant to his combat effectiveness. If you're amazed by this supposed liability becoming the most effective soldier on Omaha Beach, hit that subscribe button right now. We're about to cover the afternoon and evening of D-Day, when Slaughter's kill count will nearly double as he continues proving everyone wrong. Don't miss what happens next. Noon through 1800. Inland fighting. After noon, American forces began advancing inland from the beach. German defenders had fallen back to secondary positions in villages and hedgerows. The fighting shifted from beach assaults to small unit combat in Norman countryside. This terrain favored defenders with its high hedgerows, sunken roads, and stone buildings that could be fortified. Slaughter's company was assigned to capture the village of Vierville-sur-Mer, approximately 1 kilometer inland from the beach. German forces had established defensive positions in stone buildings throughout the village. Machine guns covered the approach roads. Snipers were positioned in upper floors and church towers. The village had to be taken to secure the beach exits. The approach to Vierville required crossing open fields under German observation. Previous attacks had been repulsed with heavy casualties. American forces needed a new approach. Slaughter volunteered to lead a flanking movement through a sunken road that German defenders apparently weren't watching carefully. Slaughter led a squad of 12 men through the sunken road. The steep banks provided cover from German positions. They advanced approximately 500 meters without being detected. This brought them to the village's eastern edge, where German defenders weren't expecting attack. Slaughter positioned his squad to assault several buildings simultaneously. At 1400 hours, Slaughter's squad attacked. He threw grenades through windows of the first building, then entered while German defenders were still stunned. 3 Germans in the building died, killed by rifle fire at close range. The second building, a stone barn fortified with sandbags, required different tactics. Slaughter climbed to the roof, dropped grenades through a ventilation hole, then covered the door as surviving Germans tried to escape. 4 Germans died in this assault. The attack on the village's eastern edge created confusion among German defenders. They'd expected attacks from the beach side, not from the flank. German officers tried to reposition forces to counter Slaughter's squad. This movement exposed them to fire from American forces approaching from the beach. The coordination, though improvised rather than planned, was effective. Between 1400 and 1600 hours, Slaughter's squad fought through 5 buildings in Vierville. Each assault followed similar pattern. Grenades to stun defenders, immediate entry while Germans were disorganized, close quarters shooting, rapid movement to next position. Slaughter personally killed 14 Germans during this 2-hour period. His squad accounted for over 30 German casualties total. At 1630, German forces began withdrawing from Vierville. Their defensive positions had been compromised by Slaughter's flanking attack. American forces from the beach were advancing. Staying meant being surrounded. German commanders ordered withdrawal to positions further inland. The withdrawal was relatively organized but came under American fire during movement. Slaughter positioned his squad to fire on withdrawing Germans. From approximately 200 yards range, he and his squad engaged Germans moving through open ground toward their fallback positions. Over 30 minutes, Slaughter killed 9 Germans with rifle fire. His marksmanship, honed during training despite constant criticism about his weight, was exceptional. Every shot aimed carefully, most shots hitting their targets. By 1800 hours, Vierville was secured. American forces controlled the village and the roads leading inland. German forces had withdrawn to positions approximately 2 kilometers further from the beach. The immediate objectives for D-Day were achieved, but fighting would continue through the night as Germans counterattacked, attempting to push Americans back to the beach. Slaughter's confirmed kills by 1800 hours totaled 61. He'd participated in the elimination of over a dozen German positions. He'd led successful assaults when other attacks had failed. He'd demonstrated tactical leadership that impressed his company commander. And he'd done it all while carrying equipment loads that many lighter soldiers struggled to manage. His weight, the supposed liability, had been completely irrelevant to his effectiveness. 1800 through midnight, the counterattacks. German forces counterattacked beginning at approximately 1830 hours. German commanders understood that if they couldn't push Americans off the beaches on D-Day, the invasion would succeed. They committed available reserves to night attacks attempting to recapture coastal positions. The attacks focused on villages like Vierville that controlled beach exits. American forces in Vierville prepared defensive positions. Slaughter's squad was assigned to hold buildings on the village's southern edge. Intelligence suggested German attacks would come from this direction. The Americans had limited time to prepare. They positioned machine guns. They established fields of fire. They prepared ammunition and grenades. Then they waited for German assault. The first German attack came at 1900 hours. Approximately 100 German soldiers from the 352 Infantry Division attacked Vierville from the south. The attack was supported by artillery fire that forced American defenders to take cover. Then German infantry advanced under covering fire from machine guns positioned in hedgerows outside the village. Slaughter's position came under immediate attack. German soldiers advanced to within 50 yards before American defenders opened fire. The close-range firefight was intense. German soldiers used grenades against American positions. Americans returned fire with rifles and machine guns. The fighting was confused, with both sides struggling to identify targets in gathering darkness. Slaughter, positioned in a second-floor window with good fields of fire, engaged German soldiers with his M1 Garand. The semi-automatic rifle allowed rapid, accurate fire. He killed 3 Germans in the initial assault, then 4 more as they tried to regroup, then 2 more as they withdrew. The German attack broke under concentrated American fire. They'd suffered approximately 25 casualties without breaking through American positions. The second German attack came at 2000 hours. Larger force, approximately 200 men, attacking from a different direction. This attack achieved more success initially. German soldiers reached American positions and engaged in close quarters fighting. Several buildings changed hands multiple times as German attacks pushed Americans out. Then American counterattacks recaptured positions. Slaughter's building was attacked by approximately 30 German soldiers. They threw grenades through windows, then rushed the building. Slaughter and his squad fought room to room. Slaughter killed 4 Germans in close quarters, fighting on the ground floor. 3 more Germans died on the second floor. The Americans held, but barely. German attacks were determined and well coordinated. The fighting continued through the evening. German forces launched 4 separate attacks between 1800 and midnight. Each attack was repulsed, but caused American casualties. The defenders grew exhausted. Ammunition ran low. Medical supplies were consumed, treating wounded. But the Americans held their positions. Slaughter fought through all 4 German attacks. He was everywhere that fighting was heaviest. When machine gun positions were overrun, he counterattacked to recapture them. When German soldiers breached buildings, he led the defense. When ammunition ran short, he redistributed ammunition from casualties. His energy seemed inexhaustible despite the day's exertions. His final confirmed kills of D-Day came during the 4th German attack at approximately 2330 hours. A German squad of 8 soldiers attempted to infiltrate American positions using darkness for concealment. They approached Slaughter's building from an unguarded direction. Slaughter detected them through sound. He waited until they were within 30 yards. Then he threw 4 grenades in rapid succession. All 8 Germans were killed or wounded by the grenades and follow-up rifle fire. By midnight on June 6th, German attacks had ceased. German commanders recognized they couldn't dislodge American forces. The invasion had succeeded. Beaches were secure. Reinforcements were landing. Allied forces would expand from their beachhead in following days. D-Day was over. The Germans had lost. The final count, 76, confirmed after midnight during a brief lull in fighting. Slaughter's company commander conducted a count of confirmed kills. Officers interviewed soldiers about enemy casualties. They examined German bodies. They reviewed after-action reports from various engagements. The purpose was to document the battle and recognize effective soldiers. Slaughter's name appeared repeatedly in these reports. Multiple soldiers reported his actions on the beach. Squad members described his leadership in capturing Vierville. Defenders in the evening battles reported his effectiveness during German counterattacks. The commander decided to carefully document Slaughter's D-Day performance. The confirmed kill count was impressive. On the beach, 38 Germans killed through combinations of grenade throws, rifle fire, and direct assaults. In Vierville, 14 Germans killed during the village capture, 9 Germans killed during the German withdrawal, 15 Germans killed during evening counterattacks. The total was 76 confirmed German deaths directly attributable to Slaughter's actions. This count was conservative. It included only kills that could be confirmed by witnesses or physical evidence. Many Germans that Slaughter likely killed couldn't be confirmed because bodies weren't recovered or multiple Americans had fired at the same targets. The actual number Slaughter killed on D-Day was probably higher than 76, possibly exceeding 100. 76 confirmed kills in one day was extraordinary by any standard. Most infantry soldiers in World War II never killed anyone confirmed. Average soldier might achieve 1 to 3 confirmed kills during entire war service. Slaughter had achieved 76 in 18 hours. The performance was statistically remarkable. The company commander immediately recommended Slaughter for decoration. The recommendation cited his leadership, courage under fire, and extraordinary combat effectiveness. It noted that Slaughter had been among the first soldiers to advance off the beach, that he'd personally eliminated numerous German positions, that he'd led successful attacks when others had failed, that his actions had been instrumental in achieving D-Day objectives. But the recommendation also noted something else. That Slaughter had accomplished this despite being considered too fat for combat by military authorities, that officers had recommended his reassignment to non-combat duties, that his weight, cited as a liability, had proven completely irrelevant to his combat performance. The recommendation suggested that military height-weight standards might need re-evaluation based on Slaughter's demonstration that weight wasn't related to combat effectiveness. The recognition and the irony Slaughter was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, America's second-highest military decoration, for his actions on D-Day. The citation described his extraordinary heroism and effectiveness during the Normandy invasion. It became one of the war's most notable individual performances. But the recognition came with irony. The same military that had called Slaughter too fat for combat now celebrated him as one of D-Day's heroes. The officers who'd recommended his reassignment to non-combat duties now praised his combat effectiveness. The system that had questioned his capability now used his story for propaganda and recruitment. Slaughter himself found this transformation frustrating. He appreciated the recognition, but resented that respect came only after he'd proven himself through violence. He'd known all along that his weight was irrelevant to his capabilities. He'd tried to explain that farm work had built strength that charts couldn't measure. Nobody had listened until he'd killed 76 Germans in one day. The weight issue continued even after D-Day. Medical officers suggested Slaughter should lose weight for health reasons. His commanders, despite his combat record, still noted his excessive weight in fitness reports. The military bureaucracy couldn't let go of the idea that soldiers who didn't fit height-weight standards were somehow deficient, even when combat had proven otherwise. Slaughter continued serving through the war. He participated in operations in France, Belgium, and Germany. He was wounded twice but recovered and returned to duty. He added to his D-Day kill count through subsequent combat. By war's end, he'd killed over 100 German soldiers confirmed, making him one of the war's most effective infantry soldiers. After the war, Slaughter returned to Virginia. He resumed farming. He rarely discussed his war service publicly. When asked about D-Day, he'd acknowledge he'd been there, but wouldn't detail his actions. The killing weighed on him. 76 men had died by his hand in one day. Each death had been necessary for survival and mission accomplishment, but they still haunted him. Before we wrap up this incredible story of prejudice shattered by performance, hit that subscribe button one last time. We've got a final section about Slaughter's legacy and why his story matters for understanding how we judge capability. Don't miss the conclusion. The legacy. When charts don't measure capability. John Slaughter's story resonates because it challenges fundamental assumptions about physical standards and combat effectiveness. Military height-weight standards exist for legitimate reasons. Excessive weight can indicate poor health. It can affect endurance. It can complicate medical treatment. But Slaughter demonstrated that these statistical correlations don't apply universally to individuals. Slaughter's weight came from muscle built through farm labor, not from sedentary lifestyle. His strength exceeded what thinner soldiers possessed. His endurance, proven through 18 hours of continuous combat on D-Day, exceeded normal expectations. The chart said he was too fat. Reality said the charts were measuring the wrong things. Modern military still struggles with this issue. Height-weight standards remain rigid despite recognition that body composition matters more than weight alone. Soldiers with high muscle mass are sometimes penalized for exceeding weight limits. Athletes who'd excel in combat are sometimes rejected or assigned to non-combat roles because their weight exceeds charts. Slaughter's story is used in military leadership training as example of how regulations can conflict with effectiveness. It demonstrates that capability comes from multiple factors, not just from fitting standards. It shows that respecting individual differences and evaluating actual performance matters more than enforcing arbitrary metrics. The broader lesson extends beyond military context. Society constantly judges people based on appearance rather than capability. Overweight people face discrimination in employment, education, and social situations based on assumptions about their abilities. Slaughter's story proves these assumptions can be completely wrong. His weight said nothing about his courage, skill, determination, or effectiveness. The irony of Slaughter's story is that the military that rejected him eventually lionized him. The system that called him too fat eventually celebrated him as a hero. But the celebration came only after he'd proved himself through extraordinary violence. The lesson should have been that the initial judgment was wrong, not that exceptional performance could overcome deficiency. Conclusion: the soldier they called too fat. They called John Slaughter too fat for frontline combat. They recommended he be assigned to supply duties or administration. They doubted he could keep up on marches or handle combat's physical demands. They looked at his weight on charts and decided he was a liability. They saw 230 pounds on a 5'9" frame and concluded he couldn't be an effective soldier. Then June 6, 1944 arrived. Omaha Beach, the bloodiest sector of D-Day. German machine guns sweeping the beach, artillery exploding in the surf, men dying by the hundreds in the water and on the sand, chaos and carnage that broke stronger men than most. Conditions that should have proven the critics right about Slaughter being too fat for combat. Instead, Sergeant John Slaughter killed 76 Germans in one day. He advanced when others were pinned down. He eliminated German positions when others couldn't move. He led assaults when other attacks failed. He fought through 18 hours of continuous combat with energy and effectiveness that amazed everyone who witnessed it. The fat soldier proved to be the most effective soldier on the beach. 38 Germans died on Omaha Beach, killed by Slaughter's grenades and rifle fire, as he worked his way up from the water to the bluffs. 14 Germans died in Vierville-sur-Mer as Slaughter led the assault that captured the village. 9 Germans died during the German withdrawal as Slaughter fired at retreating troops. 15 Germans died during evening counterattacks as Slaughter defended positions against German attempts to recapture the village. 76 confirmed kills. More than any other American soldier achieved on D-Day, accomplished by the man military authorities had called too fat for combat, the soldier who had been recommended for non-combat assignment, the sergeant whose weight had been cited as a liability. He proved that combat effectiveness has nothing to do with fitting on a chart. The farm boy's strength built through years of physical labor gave Slaughter capabilities that charts couldn't measure. His endurance came from work ethic, not from low body weight. His determination came from character, not from physical fitness scores. The qualities that made him effective couldn't be assessed through height-weight tables or timed runs. They revealed themselves only in combat. The officers who doubted him watched him prove them wrong 76 times on June 6th. The system that had questioned his capabilities celebrated him with the Distinguished Service Cross. The military that had called him too fat used his story for propaganda about American soldier effectiveness. But the celebration couldn't erase the initial judgment's wrongness. Slaughter knew all along that his weight was irrelevant. He'd tried to explain that strength came from work, not from low weight. He demonstrated his capabilities in training despite constant criticism. But nobody listened until he'd killed 76 Germans in one day. Then they listened. Then they understood. Then they admitted they'd been wrong. The story teaches that judging people based on appearance misses what matters. That charts and standards measure some things but miss others. That capability comes from character, skill, and determination, not from fitting arbitrary metrics. That assumptions about physical limitations are often wrong when confronting reality, that the person everyone dismisses might prove most capable of all. John Slaughter returned to Virginia farming after the war. He lived quietly until 1998, dying at age 88. His obituary mentioned his D-Day service, but didn't detail his 76 confirmed kills. To his community, he was a farmer and veteran. The extraordinary day when he'd proven everyone wrong was known mainly to military historians and veterans who'd served with him. But the lesson endures in military training and leadership education. When instructors teach about combat effectiveness, they mention Slaughter. When discussing how regulations can conflict with reality, they cite his example. When explaining why evaluating actual performance matters more than enforcing standards, they tell his story. They called him too fat for the front lines. They were completely wrong. John Slaughter killed 76 Germans on D-Day, proving that weight charts measure weight, not capability. That appearance indicates nothing about courage. That assumptions about limitations often reflect our prejudices more than other people's realities. That sometimes the soldier everyone doubts proves to be the most effective warrior of all. The fat sergeant. That's how they saw him. The hero of Omaha Beach. That's what he was. The disconnect between perception and reality, between assumption and capability, between what charts said and what combat proved, defines John Slaughter's legacy. They judged him by weight. He proved them wrong by performance. 76 times. In one day, permanently.